pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Good evening. Go ahead and call the roll.
Trustee Guyer.
Here.
Trustee Spurling.
Here.
Trustee Bauman.
Here.
Trustee Youngerman.
Here.
Trustee Marisak.
Here.
Trustee Brzoska.
Here.
All right, we're all here this evening. We'll go right into our public participation. The first one we have is a fun one, is the Montgomery Robotics team. So raise your hand if you're with the Montgomery. I kind of figured that. And if you guys want, I have a little bit to read here too. So this evening we have with us the Blockers' first Lego robotics team from Thompson Junior High School, which is where I went. So I know you guys are cool. They're the new State of Illinois champions and will be attending the first Lego Robotics World Competition in Houston, Texas in April. We invited them here this evening so we can hear more about their achievements and we can wish them well personally as they head to nationals representing the state of Illinois and the village of Montgomery. And a majority of you come from Montgomery. So with that, we'd like to turn it over to the team and your coaches to kind of give an intro and a little bit of what you're working on.
Hello, we are First Lego Team 30332, the Blockers. Thank you so much for inviting us here to the Village Hall. We are excited to share our journey and ideas with you. First Lego League is a program that combines robotics and solving a real-world problem relating to this year's theme, to teach young kids engineering, coding, problem-solving, good sportsmanship, and other life skills. For the robot section of our tournament, we have to build a robot using Lego Technic, which we then is designed to solve specific missions on a mat to score points. Our robot has gyro sensors, color sensors, and power takeoffs where we connect our attachments. Using these, we solve the missions on the mat. For instance, one of our many missions is the stage. To solve this mission, we must flip the lights, turn the speakers, and push in the paddle to spin the minifigure. Our solution for this is to create this attachment. To spin the singer, we push in the paddle by driving the robot forward. To flip the speakers, we use a 3-piece boom that has a hook on the end that when extended flips the speakers. For the lights, we use an arm on a hinge that when pulled lifts the lever. We used these skills on an overall 15 different missions and reached max possible points for this year's competitions. Next, let's introduce you to our innovation project. The challenge for this year is to pick an interest or hobby and explore problems regarding it, conveying it, and to create a solution. Our choice of hobby was beekeeping. Most people take bees for granted and don't understand the role they play in our everyday life. We developed an engine-building drafting game called Honey Harvest that includes fun facts and puts you in the role of a beekeeper to get people excited about bees and beekeeping. We invite everyone to consider beekeeping as a hobby as it has a great impact on our ecosystem and our community. Completing these two challenges, we competed at 3 different competitions, winning the Champions Award at each of them, and competed against over 500 teams and rose to the best in Illinois, which means we get to represent our state at an international competition in Houston, Texas. We are planning to score max points for all the table runs, expand and possibly publish our innovation project, and score highly on core values. We are working to raise money to help offset the travel cost as well as competition registration and materials. We'll be putting out an informational flyer with donation information and our GoFundMe QR code for anyone that would be interested in donating. We encourage you and your families to look into FLL as it gets you excited about engineering, problem solving, coding, learning, and much more. All these skills benefit us as we continue in our education and professional endeavors. Many teams are accessible through your schools, but if not, you could start your own like we did. Thank you again for having us here. It is a great opportunity to be recognized by our hometown.
Awesome. Great job. Wait, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a picture. Will you come up for a picture? Where do you want? Over there?
It's okay, I understand. You don't want to see mine in the picture.
Go on the other side, balance it out, Jazz on the other side.
Should I send?
There you go.
Should I send you the video I just took?
just need to know who to make it to. So Pete Wallers and Ben Rosowski and I sit on the Montgomery Foundation. So we have money that we give out to folks who need it. So the Montgomery Foundation would like to present you guys with a check for $500 to use towards your trip. I just need you to do that. Can I give this to you? Yeah, of course. Perfect. And thanks for coming tonight. Will you report back and let us know how you guys did? Yes, if you want to give us the flyers, yeah, we'll totally.
Can you give your buttons to everybody? Oh, everybody gets.
Yeah, do you want to just work your way around here? Yeah.
So on their flyer, there's a QR code because they have a YouTube website that shows their
Thank
perfect
you.
run, right? I think it's just the GoFundMe. Oh, it's got the GoFundMe and eventually hopefully
This is cool.
is it gonna link the game and the,
Actually, there is a link in here that does the.
yeah. So they just did a whole, they just again, it's in the process of being edited. That is like basically how to play the game. Thank you. And so that was being edited after they did a demo.
Legos, dude.
He's a mean guy. He's the mean guy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was cool. It's just made out of Legos. Blockers. Oh, very nice.
Nice job, yeah. Thank you. Same.
Again, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, no problem. We won't be offended if you leave. Yeah. Awesome.
We will make Montgomery proud, hopefully.
Good luck, kids.
Oh, cool. I want to see it. I have to post it. Or give it to Christina
I know.
first.
Yes, because we went, there's a gentleman who was in, because a couple of the kids are 4-H too, and so he is a beekeeper, and we went. and did
All right,
that.
I'll move on to the next one that we have this evening is the River Run Check recipients. This past October, we held the 20th annual River Run, and this year's race was a great success, and we're excited this evening to pass along our success back into the community. The proceeds of the race have supported local nonprofits for years, and this year, due to the overwhelming success, we're able to increase our giving. This year's recipients of the $2,000 donations on behalf of the River Run will go to the following organizations: the Hesed House, the Rotary Club of Montgomery, and the Montgomery Memorial Post 745 VFW. The team from the Hesed House is unable to be here tonight as they had their own board meeting, but our team will deliver their check, a smaller check, in person. And then tonight, we do have representatives of both the Rotary Club and the VFW Post. I'd ask you both, if you want to come down, we can take individual photos there. We appreciate what you do for the community, and we really value the partnership that we have with both, or all three organizations. So come on down. Or just come on over, if you're already down. I mean, it's. All right. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Oops. I forgot one, like, really important aspect. So moving on, item C, we have a public hearing for the Lake Michigan Connection improvements. So with that, I'll open our public hearing, and then I believe Engineer Ott has a few comments.
Yeah, we just have a little, couple things to read. So the purpose of this public hearing is to obtain public comment on the Village of Montgomery's water system improvement projects for the village's Lake Michigan connection and on the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency's preliminary environmental impacts determination as provided for in the Illinois procedures for issuing loans from the Public Water Supply Loan Program. The project is in planning stage, and this hearing is not a pre-construction meeting. The project is to complete needed improvements for the village to switch its source water to Lake Michigan by connecting to DuPage Water Commission, specifically the replacement of water mains to reduce leakage and water loss, and construction of an east and west receiving station with storage tanks to receive supply from TWC. Financial assistance for the project is being sought from the IEPA Public Water Supply Loan Program. A copy of the project summary and preliminary environmental impacts determination provided by the IEPA is on file here at Village Hall and available for public inspection during regular office hours. Anyone interested in providing comment on the project or the preliminary environmental impact determination or any environmental impacts of the project are now given an opportunity to be heard. Written comments may also be submitted at any time up to and including an additional 10 days following the date of this public hearing. Written comments may be sent to the Village Montgomery Village Clerk and or to the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency.
Solid. All right. Is there anybody here this evening that would like to make comment on our Lake Michigan connection improvements? Okay. Hearing none, I'll close that public hearing. Move on to item D for public participation. We have the public comment period. This is the 5-minute opportunity or 2-minute opportunity for any member of the public to address the board, 2, 5, on any topic. Come on down. Yeah, no problem. It doesn't work. Welcome. If you could just state your name and address.
Pardon me?
Yeah, if you can just state your name and address, it'd be
Yeah,
great.
my name is Linda Carl. I live on 2461 Mayfield Drive. And it was ironic today that I'm going to talk about my mailbox that was taken down by the pickup truck plow, not the big plow, the pickup truck. It happened that I called today to get a quote for putting it back, putting it back up. And I called, let's see, the name of the company is, because I only found one, mailboxfast.com. And he said, that's ironic. He said, I was just talking to Sean Murphy.
Yep.
So, yeah, his quote's over $400. And that's the only one I found.
Wow. What kind of mailbox is it? Just a regular mailbox?
Mailbox, post,
Yeah,
the traditional post to mailbox.
got it.
He's in even talking to Sean, you can't find anybody that's going to put them up, first of all. There's nobody doing it. But to go back, mine happened on January 9th, and I do have a video of it.
Yeah.
I just come in from getting my mail. I walked in, turned around, and watched them take down my mailbox. Plows up, because there's no snow in the street that day. It already melted. And yeah, I couldn't believe it, because I'm a farm kid.
Yeah,
So we have pickup truck with a plow, and I used to take it with my kids to the grocery store. And this person can't even go down a 2-lane street and not take out the mailbox.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just, I just turned around, I was like going, are you kidding me? It's like, really, move over a foot. You don't need to be that close to the mailboxes to be going down the street. Because I have a video of it for its damage, and I just feel that it's basic kindergarten. You broke it, you fix it. It's not I didn't do it. No, I'm going to say you, and I don't mean you, you know what
I
I'm
get
saying?
you.
I mean,
Yeah.
you have people that do these repair work every day, you do it. Why do I have to try and find somebody? And it's $400, not $150. I'm a disabled 70-year-old lady. I'm not out digging ditches for mailboxes with my post hole digger anymore. Those days are gone. So I don't think I'm being unreasonable by saying, I just want them to be responsible and take accountability for what they did.
Yep.
And I don't care who does it, as long as they do it correctly and just put it back. I don't care.
Yeah, okay,
You know, to me, it's pretty simple.
I hear you. Yeah.
So,
And we do have that on the agenda to talk about later tonight.
yeah, and it was funny that was going to come up, and I have no idea what you're going to
Nice.
say about it.
If
but
you
I just-
have a couple of minutes,
Yeah.
We'll talk about it
Yeah,
just a
that's
little
fine.
bit later.
I was just told by Sean to make sure when you open that up to say something now.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So,
Do you, does Sean have your contact information?
yes.
Okay, perfect.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure he does, yeah.
All right, Linda, well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there anybody else for public comment? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on. We have several items on consent. I'll read those items, entertain a motion. Minutes of the February 26th Village Board meeting, executive session minutes for February 26th, accounts payable through March 11th, accounts receivable report for February of '24, the community development monthly report for February of '24, and the water production report for February of '24.
So moved.
Second.
Is that Ben?
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Berzaska?
Yes.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman,
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
And that carries 6-0, thank you. Moving on to items for separate action, we have several. The first two we'll discuss together is a recommendation of Planning Commission on amendments to the UDO, and the second is Ordinance 2070, amending those edits. Director Apt.
Yes, thank you, President Brawley. Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on amendments to our Unified Development Ordinance on March 7th. This amendment started with our joining the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus Electrical Vehicle Readiness Program. So we began amending the code to address their recommendations regarding our community becoming EV ready and making it easier for residents and businesses to install charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. So it started with that, and then, of course, we always take the opportunity to fix things that aren't quite working right. So we have some other amendments to the code that include some adding to a list of things that would allow for administrative adjustments, updating our uses, addressing things like daycare homes, parking lots, solar, vertical storage containers, and carports, addressing some changes to parking lot landscaping that were recommended by our Forestry Division, addressing some sign changes. So A-frame signs and T-frame signs would become temporary signs rather than permanent signs that require a permit, but the same design standards would be there, just kind of shifting where they're allocated. And then removing banner flag signs from being a permitted temporary sign type and making them prohibited because they have become a bit of an enforcement nightmare. So making that shift, and then the relevant definitions, changes that need to be made relevant to the other changes that are in the code. So the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of these amendments on the 7th by a vote of 6-0, with the only condition being that there might be some changes that need to be made to numbering based on whether everything gets approved or not, so.
Thank you.
I have a
Questions,
question.
comments?
I do have a question. Would you please describe what a banner sign is?
A banner flag sign.
Yeah,
So
I'm
they
sorry,
kind of look
banner
like
flag.
giant feathers that you see stuck on poles out like by the right-of-way.
Basically everywhere.
Yeah,
Right. So we're saying, yes, they still can be, or no, they cannot
that would be a big no.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And this is for item A, the recommendation of Plan Commission.
Yes.
Call the roll.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Berzaska?
Yes.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman? Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
carries 6-0. Is there any objection to putting ordinance 2070 on consent at a future meeting?
I have one question. On this Unified Development Ordinance text amendment for the electric vehicle charging station, it says 4 per 1,000 square feet of GFA on any retail use. So if I have, explain that to me, please. If I have a strip mall that's 5,000 square feet, or
No,
there's,
so this is for charging stations, like, think of it as a gas station for electric vehicles. So if you create a gas station for electric vehicles, an electric vehicle charging station, so you have multiple charging stations kind of under a canopy, that kind of thing, and have a retail use associated with it, you will have to provide additional parking for that retail use. So this is the same as we require for gas stations. So if a gas station is just a gas station, say like the Sam's Club one, there's not really additional parking that's required besides parking at the pump.
okay.
That additional parking requirement is for if you have that retail or restaurant component to
So
your
this isn't,
station.
this isn't if I have a restaurant and it's 3,000 square feet, I don't need to give 9,
No.
okay, okay.
It's not required. We're not requiring,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to items C and D, we'll discuss together. It's a recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission on food truck court text amendment, and then the enacting ordinance 2071, first reading of that. Go ahead.
Yes, so back in 2023, we had a couple of property owners that were interested in trying to create food truck courts on their property, and since that was not addressed in the UDO, we moved forward with providing a temporary use permit for them while we looked at what kind of code amendments might be needed to allow that kind of use. So back in January and February, after researching some standards and creating a draft text amendment, we brought it before you, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, to get some feedback before we went into public hearing. We took your feedback and amended the text amendment and had the public hearing on March 7th with the Planning and Zoning Commission. The proposed amendment created the definition for food truck court, as well as adding it to our use list, so it classifies either a principal use or an accessory use food truck court as a special use in the Mill District, B1 and B2 districts, and the M1 and M2 zoning districts. And then, of course, it provides the use standards for both principal use and accessory use food trucks. So the public hearing was on March 7th. The Planning and Zoning Commission discussed it and recommended approval on a vote of 4-2, with an additional condition that requires the health department permit or certificate to be visibly displayed on any mobile food facility when they're operating. So that addition has been added to the ordinance that is before you for first reading, so that has been incorporated into the language.
Is there any sunset on the special use, or it just granted forever?
Once it's approved, it's granted per any of our other special uses, so if they sold the business to another one, it would be able to continue operating. But if it ceases to operate for, I believe it's 6 months, then the special use would be typically revoked if it hasn't operated in,
So
I believe
if
it's
they-
6 months.
If they close down in the fall and don't open until the spring, it could be revoked every year if we wanted to? And I'm not saying we want to. What I'm thinking is, this seems like a great use, a great short-term use for some vacant parcels that we have. But if you grant a special use and it runs with the land forever, I guess it could just,
Right, again, it is, as I said, if they do stop operating, it would cease. So that would be something to consider, but we did not write it with any sort of sunset in there.
there's a minimum of a number of food trucks though, right?
To be considered a food truck court, you have to have 2 food trucks.
And they have to be open.
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
I have a couple of items for this.
Mhm.
I was at Plan Commission. I don't remember there being any further discussion about the live music aspect. Is that still something that is going to be permitted with these food truck courts?
Yes, we did allow for it.
I would prefer not to, just putting it out there. I would also like to see this capped. We have two food courts potentially at this point that are interested in developing. I would like to see that capped where we just have the 2 at this point. Again, putting that out there for discussion. I also mentioned previously, I do not think this is appropriate to be put in the mill district, and I see it is still listed as a special use, can be a special use in the mill district. I would like to see mill district not being part of, or not being allowed in the mill district. And again, I'm not overly excited about having the additional items for sale where you can have, a different booth there, where it could almost get this, it could potentially get a flea market feel. Those are my concerns with this. I would like to see those components not permitted with these food courts.
Okay, a couple of things. So it is a special use, so somebody would have to make an application and explain their intended use here. At that time, could we say, based on your location close, let's say you're right next to residential, we feel like a condition for your approval is that you do not have live music, or put some restrictions on at the approval of the special use?
I think that would be appropriate.
The other
Laura, would you
question I had
agree
is-
with that?
I think we'd have to restructure a little bit how the live music portion in the ordinance reads, but yes, I mean, it's something we could certainly do, it would just probably take a little tweaking.
And just further on that live music, so the live music is then permitted with the working hours of the food court, correct? So we could potentially have live music until 10 PM?
Does it tie to the noise ordinance, or is that with the food court? I don't recall how it was drafted.
I think both.
Both, okay.
And then are we, when I'm thinking live music, I'm thinking along the lines of like what we have at the fest, with the stage and the amplifiers. Or are we talking about somebody there with the guitar? Are we,
I think we were envisioning more somebody there with a guitar than having like a stage and doing like a full concert, so.
but it's open where
It
it
is
could
open to
potentially,
that it could
somebody
be
could
that.
come with an amplifier
You
and
could have
have.
amps without a stage, I mean,
Right,
yeah, so.
right, where it could be a little more to it and a much louder music than what we're kind of thinking is going to happen.
Yeah, it'd still have to abide by the noise ordinance, which would govern, and I think it was drafted similarly to what is allowed for outdoor dining, like live music on an outdoor patio was what was contemplated, but of course, certainly, if you want to add additional conditions or restrictions, that's within the board's prerogative.
Now, or via the special use approval?
Yep. Yeah, either way. I mean, I think if you want to tie it more location-specific, you'd have to tweak the way the live music provision in the ordinance is drafted, or you could take it and make it more conditional based on the use instead of allowing it completely outright.
Got it, okay.
I would just be against the live music in the residential area.
I think I'd agree with Trustee Spurling on that as well, and Broska. The location that we talked about at our last meeting with this court was surrounded by residential area, and if it's an open-ended use to the live music, every weekend you're open to this, you don't know, again, is it acoustic guitar, or is it acoustic guitar with amplifiers? Are there vocals, loud singing? Is it a cover band? Is it a mariachi? What type of music is it? How loud is it? There's, I think it just opens up for a lot more potential concern for it. I would rather see, if there's live music, a special permit for a particular event or a particular night for a music, like a special music night that they could have. And I would agree with Trustee Youngerman as far as that, the statement you made that if these don't have a sunset on them, they're on an empty lot, then we have no one else has any reason to develop that property
So-
beyond that potential use.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. So because this is a special use, we're not issuing a license, are we?
Correct, so they would be exempt from the stationary food vendor license requirement because they are going through the special use process. So it's still coming before you.
Yeah.
But we don't do the individual licensing like we are doing with the individual ones that go on a lot. And again, we had to go this route because the way that reads only allows one food truck on one zoning lot. So it would not allow for them to be multiple on one of those parcels.
So I'm just thinking if I'm the property owner, I don't have to pay a fee, and I can get this approved, and then it can just, gets rent from the food truck people annually, but I'm still paying property taxes. Is this still considered, do you think, a vacant parcel, or do you think their taxes are gonna go up? I'm just thinking, is this a long-term solution for a site or a short-term?
Improvements will have to happen on the sites if they are vacant, because it does have to be on an improved surface, so there would be some improvement to the property. I don't think it's going to be a significant increase in property taxes, but obviously a vacant property with no improvements on it versus a property that has some improvements on it is going to make a difference for commercially zoned property. So,
Based on that, I'm not overly concerned that somebody's going to, whatever they can charge for a few food trucks is not going to offset their property taxes. And so they're going to be disincentivized to keep it forever because they're probably running at a loss.
How does this vision differ from what was anticipated at the corner of 31 and Alcott by the commissary building, where wasn't anticipated that on the weekends there were supposed to be multiple food trucks there, and now you're lucky if you have one, and that's it?
right, so in that instance, they tried it out, and perhaps their location wasn't the best location for something like that. So they are evaluating whether it's something they want to move forward with and try again this year and obtain the special use permit if the board does approve that. I think they're kind of waiting to see how this plays out and how they move forward with if they want to do that again. I think what we did in that instance is we treated it as more of like a outdoor sales in that instance in order to approve a temporary use permit to get us through to coming up with regulations that would hopefully address any particular concerns that we might have in regulating that kind of use, but giving them some sort of right and assurance to be able to continue doing that. Because again, the idea, my understanding is with the food truck courts, is there's a lot of coordination in trying to get who you want to be there. So things have to be done in advance and booked in advance. And so you want that assurance that you're still going to have your use as opposed to having to apply every year to be able to operate. So that's kind of why we went the route that we did with creating a use as opposed to addressing it through the mobile food vendor licensing requirement and temporary use.
Is there an insurance requirement?
Yes.
Attorney Jillian, so then if we were to put some kind of time limit on it, does that, then it's no longer considered a special use? Would it have to be something else? Would you have to call it something else, or?
Yeah, we've rarely done like a temporary special use. It's kind of frowned upon to do it that way. I think
Laura, could you make sure that your mic is on?
Sorry. Yes, we tend to not do temporary special uses because generally when you're making the findings of fact for a special use, you've already determined that it's appropriate in that zoning district under certain circumstances. I think otherwise you're kind of almost looking back at the licensing scheme that we were doing before is essentially what you'd be looking for if you don't want necessarily the long term. But as Sonia had mentioned, we do have, the 6-month sunset for things like outdoor dining. We exclude that from the 6 month, but that would be something that you could presumably work in somehow temporally if, there were concerns about not having enough trucks or maybe bumping up the threshold for trucks. If you wanted to ensure that it was a larger, scale food court and not just 1 or 2 trucks all the time taking up a parcel, so maybe there's the difference between, is it an actual full-scale operation?
Right.
And then maybe you're not as concerned about the land.
I guess,
being tied up.
they could show up one day in the middle of the 6 months and be okay then, where they wouldn't have lost their special use.
Right, they could perhaps just operate on the weekends or something during the winter season or when weather's permissive for them to be there, and they would still be able to keep their special use active.
And I understand the line of questioning. I'm totally with you on it. I think there's going to be a level of investment on a property owner that's not going to be zero and ongoing expenses that won't be zero that makes it lean, in my opinion, more towards like a current use, not an ultimate best use for the property. I was thinking about the property we own down here. Like, we wouldn't want it to go forever. And the property owner is getting the special use. So they have the obligations under here, right? Not the food truck folks. So they have to manage the food truck operation. So if there's 10 food trucks that are there, it's kind of cool. So I do applaud staff for thinking outside the box. I know we're asking lots of good questions.
And I'm going to circle back now to, I don't think it's appropriate in the Mill District, and I'd like to cap it at just 2 at this point.
Is it me?
Sure.
I think the live entertainment, I'm not I like the idea of the acoustical thing, but since we can't really police that,
Right.
I would say no to all of it. Like, again, trustee Bauman's point, a special event permit, like, hey, we'd like to have some, guys come and play acoustic guitar. Maybe there's a process by which they can request that event-type permit. But as far as including it as this and having it open-ended, I'm not a fan of that. I also agree with trustee Spurling on not in the Mill District. One of my concerns is if this property starts to dilapidate, we're envisioning this is going to be new, it's going to look nice. 3 years from now, when that canopy that they've put up is ripped, torn, blowing in the breeze, it's kind of falling apart, what recourse do we have to get them to fix it?
So they are required to maintain their property, so per our property maintenance code and building codes, they'd be required to maintain things. We did write an enforcement section, so it does say if they are in violation of the village ordinances or the standards of the special use more than 3 times, I believe, and a rolling 12-month period, we do have the right to revoke their special use.
Okay.
So if they're not responsive and they're not taking care of the property, then we do have that ability to be able to revoke the special use.
That's good, it's got some teeth in it, so you can maintain it. So, yeah, other than the outdoor music, and again, I've tried to go over here a couple times, and it's yet to be open, so I would like to see it turn into something and become a thing, but as of right now, maybe it just hasn't reached that point.
Yeah.
But, so that's where I'm at. No Mill District and no music.
Okay. I think the board is,
Thank you, Doug.
the board's fine in agreement on the music. And you guys might all disagree with me. I feel like we have a parcel right there that maybe food trucks could go on in the meanwhile before we develop it. That's the only thing I can think of in the Mill District. It's just vacant.
No,
No.
I don't want to see
And
that
one-
happen.
and the other concern for me is, we have folks that pay large property tax bills and are required to have an ANSO system and sprinklers and all kinds of other requirements that we now let, Jim Bob pull up in his truck and open up a quarter of a mile away, no property taxes, none of the additional expenses, none of those requirements that the person who's made an actual capital investment in our community has to incur. And I feel like it's a little disingenuous to allow them. I know when we did some on Douglas Road, we were concerned about, we don't want another place that's opening up right across from a place that serves the same kind of food and things. So that's my concern, is the brick and mortar folks that are here and have made that capital investment in our community. I don't want to erode that investment that they've made by supporting completely this idea of, these folks rolling into town and taking that away from them.
I understand your point. It's a solid point. I would just say back, like, if I'm looking for a night out, it's not going to be at a picnic table on the side of a road at a taco truck. I like the taco trucks, but it's a different kind of thing you're looking for. If you're just going there for $12 in food, then you can go there. If you're looking for an evening out with your wife, you're probably going to a sit-down restaurant. But
I
I
guess
get the point.
that's, you lead, I think, right into my train of thought. What is it going to attract then? Especially if you have that open-ended live music. You don't have any requirements or specifications for the other vendors that are there. They're selling what? I think it's a vision. I would be more, to disagree with you, I would be more in supportive of a Mill District setup run by established restaurants here that is very coordinated, organized with their kitchens, their trucks, their events, and knowing how our restaurants own and operate their businesses rather than just a vacant lot up on Montgomery Road that's going to have a band 2 nights a month that we don't know what kind of noise they're going to generate. We don't know what kind of vendors are going to be selling what and to whom, especially if we're not going to police and regulate it.
Sure. If
I
you,
think the vision, it has a great vision
Yeah.
in the right place with the right organization, with the right owner.
Mm-hmm.
But without knowing what that looks like, I'm looking at it more of a becoming a problematic spot for us than
Yeah.
anything.
I mean, it's going to be tricky to float it, to make it work. I appreciate the vision, though. If you've ever been, I've been to food truck, courts where there's 5 or 10 different folks and they got picnic tables on the inside, and it's a draw. So it could be a draw for our downtown. I'm not sure that that's the case here, but I think that's what staff was looking for. Like, it could draw more people to downtown, and it doesn't, these are in bigger cities, but it doesn't erode you can meet there, meet with your group there, have a taco or whatever, try this, have a smoothie, and then go to the speakeasy for a drink. Like, it doesn't have, I appreciate the vision. I'm hoping that we can kind of land the plane on something where we can try it.
I like the idea. I don't want it to turn into a Renaissance fair. I guess for lack of a better term, I'm kind of back and forth on the Mill District because, yes, we want people to come to downtown. I like Trustee Bauman's idea about the future and established restaurants, and it's, hey, maybe we serve some sort of different food or something that's coming out of our kitchen or something like that. But it's hard to police once you give that special use.
I mean, it also is a case-by-case basis based on their site. So if you put it in, it doesn't mean that anything ever gets approved in the Mill District. You can
But-
look at that site on that day and say, it doesn't make sense.
If we have the potential to eliminate their special use if they have 3 violations in a 12-month period, I don't want staff to be chasing these violations constantly and, hey, we've been on you for 6 months about this, to do this, and is that, if we go through, is it one violation that we're spending 6 months on? Or is it a situation where if they haven't responded within a certain period of time, now it's another violation and another violation? Can the violation be the same thing? So,
So, I mean, staff did propose this, so if it was going to be onerous to staff, I don't think they would have. But yeah, there'll be work for them to do.
Yeah, and this was one of the benefits, though, of doing it as a special use versus permitted use, because the enforcement mechanism is much easier as a special use. If it was permitted use, they'd have to go through the whole adjudication process with the hearing officer. Here, it is almost entirely staff-based to issue those citations and do the revocation, so it is less onerous on staff.
Okay. So if I'm hearing things, music out. Nobody's commented on this. The sale of things. It has me very concerned. Can you talk about like what the Plan Commission or staff's thoughts were on that? I could see if they're ancillary to what you're doing, but if it's like its own, I'm selling,
If you may recall, from the Rust Stop initial application, one of the things they were thinking as things kind of solidified and they were able to make it a more permanent thing was doing something similar to like Batavia and being able to have kind of smaller, being able to lease out for smaller vendors, small businesses, to be able to have a space there. So it wouldn't just be food trucks, but it could be other small businesses similar to, kind of, I forget what they call it over at Batavia, it's escaping my mind. But, they have their chamber or whichever group it is that runs it that has little houses. So that was like their idea, that it could grow into having that as well. So it could be food trucks and it could be that, and kind of becomes this thing. So we were trying to think about that potential as well, so that we would be able to allow those sort of additional sales in there without necessarily having to come back and amend the special use, or to have to come back and amend the code, because we didn't think that far on how we would address that particular type of use. So that's where staff's head was at, with kind of allowing those additional sales that could happen there for more kind of like, like small at-home businesses would have that opportunity to be able to sell something as well with those.
I love the idea. The Batavia Downtown Association, I think, runs that. It's wildly successful. There's a waiting list, I think, to get those units. If you haven't been there, it's like an incubator for small
Yes.
businesses. Some of those have purchased buildings in downtown. I get that. I see that as totally different from a food truck thing, and I would love to see something like that in our town when we're ready. I just think it's different from this.
What I'm picturing is Joni down the block is selling Aunt Sally's crocheted hot pads and stuff. Things like that that aren't what we're visioning. We're visioning in our head, we like to think, okay, this is gonna be really cool, these really nice, and I can picture somebody selling like T-shirts and stuff that are
It's gonna turn into a
resident flea market.
So can I
Renaissance
chime in?
Festival craft
Can I
show.
chime in
I
as the
definitely would
person
want
who
a
did
flea
that,
market
who was
in
over
the
the
Mill
the crafters and the booths for years at the fest? All 3 days, I policed those booths because the people were bringing in things. We had a whole page of, here's what you are allowed to do, here's what you can't do. And we had to police it all 3 days because they had generators, gas-run generators there. We had to eliminate selling live animals, food sample, things like that. I think it's opening up to a lot more policing from staff. If we say, sure, you can have this other use with people selling things. The other thing is, I'm picturing if you, the last time I was by Fox Valley Mall, they have the thing with like the big rugs or the wall things, something like that out there that you see on different corners. And my concern is I do not want it to become an open-air flea market. That's my concern. I do not want that in these areas, because once we have that, it's very hard to roll that back. That's my concern, and that's why I do not want to have something else there for sale.
Sure.
I don't think we're set up for that.
Quick question, I do agree with that. Let's say we didn't pass this, I'm not saying we're not going to. Could a property owner just file a PUD and go through the PUD process to set up something like this? Like, is it allowable? Like, we've tried to get so specific with what we want, but like, could that property owner just submit and say, here's my vision for this property, and we would have the teeth that we need in that PUD ordinance? Just curious.
I would have to look into that a little deeper. I can't necessarily
Yeah, but we
opine on
didn't
that
ask
on the
that.
fly.
Yeah, that's right. I would be more comfortable if we took out the selling of things
Okay.
and the music. I'll still press for trying to bring people downtown. But what is so you're not in favor of that? Bauman's not.
And I still want it capped too. I'd love to see it capped to just the 2 at this point.
Can we cap the number of special uses?
Yeah, I don't think, I'd have to confirm, but I don't think there's a way to necessarily
It's not
cap
like a
it.
license.
If it was licensed, we could
If you'd
cap
license,
them.
you could.
But we could just not vote for.
So then I would just be a no after this on everything, is what you're saying. Okay.
Well, if you wanted
there you go.
zero, no, if you wanted 0 of them. Okay, down here? Mill District?
Music, Mill District, I'm not a huge fan. I think, I think with the open air market type thing, downtown would be the place for that. But again, we don't have the ability to police it. And again, when this thing is open, let's keep in mind, staff's not here. Code
Yeah.
enforcement's not here at 6 o'clock at night. They're gone.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of,
You wanna
who's
eliminate
who's
the music?
policing it? I don't like the music, and I don't like the open air market. Mill District, I could go kind of either way on it.
Got it. So a maybe on that one. I
Maybe.
think everybody is in agreement on the others. Mill District, you 3? Negative?
I'm not too,
That's fine.
yeah, we have a big draw every year downtown. It's called Montgomery Fest, right? And, you're gonna draw a lot of people downtown for what? I mean, you need things for people to do downtown. I mean, we have Danny Boy's, we have the Gray's Mill, we have a Trevete, we have Groucho's, we have a few things down here. But, I mean, just drawing people downtown, I don't see the benefit of that, because we draw people downtown every year. A lot of people at Montgomery Fest, when we
Sure.
do our own food vendors, our own food court, we draw people
We do.
downtown. So we have the draw,
There's
so that
several
people
days a
know what
year
we
when we
have.
draw a lot of people, and there's 300 days a year when we don't. I
Right.
think we need 10 times as many things in our downtown.
Well,
to
yeah,
make
we
it
do.
vibrant.
Yeah, we need more.
So, but I'm not.
That's the one
I'm
thing
not
I always hear
arguing
from
about it.
people is I would go downtown if there's more things to do. Obviously, that will come in time. But I don't think that we need to just draw people downtown, just to draw people downtown.
I think that's the point.
Well, I know, but everybody knows what's
I'm fine with
downtown
it.
Montgomery, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
They know, because people are here for the Montgomery Fest, a lot of people.
Sure.
So, and, you know, if they want to come back and patronize the businesses we have, they do.
Yeah.
But I'm not huge on, you
Okay.
know,
So you're no on mill, no. We're all good.
If this was no on mill, would it prohibit, or would, let's say, the restaurants that we do have here downtown on the corner? We have Gray's Miller, Danny's Boys, the Trevete, Grouchy Gump. I always mix that name up. If they wanted collectively to have a weekend event, trucks outside, since they have their own parking lots and buildings, would they be permitted to do something like this without this ordinance in place? Or if this ordinance said, no, mill district's out of the question? Since they have their own property, are they able to?
I think we would look
do
at
that.
that as part of the temporary use permit. So we'd be looking at that as like an outdoor, a temporary use event. So similarly, you know, we might have, we've had occasions where we've had some of the businesses in our industrial districts have had like a customer appreciation day. So they brought in several food trucks to their facility and had something. So we, you know, for, you know, a 2-day weekend event or something. And so we've approved a temporary use permit for that. So certainly there is that option if businesses in downtown wanted to do something.
Because I certainly, by omitting mill district out of this, I wouldn't want to tie the hands of
Yeah,
the restaurants that are down here already that wanted to do something similar.
sure.
Yeah, I'd like to find a way where we could say yes to the mill district, where it's constructed in such a way that it makes sense to use it down in the mill district.
I kind of actually see, as we were talking, as actually trustee Guyer was speaking, like, it would be kind of cool to have it down here, because people get their food and go sit in the newly redeveloped park and enjoy having some food and things. So there's a little bit of an upside there, because then it does draw some people downtown and they can enjoy the park and one of our nice amenities right here and become familiar with it. But, so, I mean, I could go, Bill, I'm not a no on it.
Okay.
I'm not a no on it either.
Swayed on the mill district.
Cool.
Way to go, Matt.
What can I,
Way to go. I had everybody going with me. Way to go, Matt.
so what can I do?
Is there a okay, say we say no to this, what we have in front of us to the mill district, and we task staff with coming up with a monthly event, or talk to the business owners down here to have a monthly or bi-monthly event, where we do have something somewhat like this, but it's more,
individual
Structured?
trucks. Yeah.
and related to the specific businesses down here?
Like
So
you
this
said,
is
you could
food
do
court, right?
something, as Doug said, because everything is envisioned, but you have the food, you're in the park, you go sit on the deck at the beer garden along the river. I mean, it's a great summer evening, but it's getting people down here to experience that and what's.
And
Well,
we
this
used
is-
to, honestly, when we used to do the concerts in the park with the Knoxville District, there was always a food vendor. Usually it was like a hot dog guy or somebody came, just so that there was some kind of, am I wrong, Debbie? Was there usually a food vendor of some sort?
The last few years, we.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could envision that, like, when the park is completed, getting like a concert in the park type thing happening again. We don't need the stage, because we'll have it up there. And then maybe just having several food trucks contracted that
But
come in.
that's a special event. That's not having a food truck
Correct.
court.
Right.
Correct.
So we're
this is-
doing
we're talking
pretty good
about
on our
courts
special
here.
events.
The
right?
other thing, I mean, it's historic mill district, and we have been, since I've been in my seat, I mean, there's a bunch of us that have been here together. We've been very protective over mill district and what is allowed. And that's why I don't think it's appropriate. I just don't.
So we do a good job at our special events of bringing people down here. We know exactly how many days a year that is. This gives us one other tool to bring some more people down, where it becomes just, we're inching towards becoming a destination. It'll be long, maybe long after all of us are gone. But the little things like that, they bring people to, like the River Run, where they come and see the river that they've never seen before. People come up and say, you got a really great river aspect here, you should do something with it. That's it. We could try it, and if somebody comes in for a special use and we don't like it, we don't have to approve it.
But this is for food truck courts.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
So we can still, if somebody wants to come in and have a special event and
Yep.
and get a license per food truck vendor
Mm-hmm.
to be here one weekend,
Yeah,
we could do that without having to put in a food truck court
sure.
special
My thing
use.
is,
Yeah.
special events, I don't think in and of itself are going to make or break our downtown. It's going to be consistently opened, uses and businesses, frankly. I think getting more of a conversation towards our downtown will solidify our businesses that are there, some of which are not even open 7 days a week now. So like, really, I know it's uncomfortable, and I think that's the point, is trying to stretch the envelope a little bit to make some magic happen down here.
I'll say yes to the Mill District because I can always say no when it comes.
Yeah, so will
See, and
I.
I'm thinking the opposite.
Yep.
I'm thinking if somebody comes here with a fantastic idea for the Mill District, then we could always say, okay, we can now include it into the special use. I'm
Yeah,
thinking the
we'll have to-
opposite.
We'll publish for a public hearing, we'll bring it to Plan Commission, and then we'll bring it to the village board for a
But
vote.
again, it would have to be a fantastic idea. I don't think a food truck court
But-
is going to be like the
Right,
thing
I
that,
get you, but
launches
even
us.
then, they still have to submit for a special use.
Mm-hmm.
And then you review the merits on that specific parcel, not the user, the parcel.
right.
And you could say, you know what, your vision isn't perfect. It needs amending. And maybe nobody ever submits for this, and we did this conversation just for fun. Maybe not though.
Am I losing out? Is that what you're telling me? Is that what you're telling me, Bradley? We're done. We're done. I'm losing this
I don't know.
portion of the
It depends what
conversation.
Ben says.
So what I'm hearing is, don't put this on consent agenda, is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what you're hearing. It's not going on
being
consent
in the Mill
agenda.
District. I just don't think it should be entertainment in a residential area.
Yep.
And I don't like the whole open market, flea market
Perfect.
type thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that part.
All right, I think staff has clear direction.
We've muddied the waters enough.
Have we beat this dead horse?
We'll see
So I
this
got,
on
what,
for
2 out of
separate
3?
action at a future meeting. We can talk about it some more. All right,
Thanks,
but I would
Sonia.
like to
I'll try
vote
to keep it
on, on item C, recommendation of Planning and Zoning Commission.
The fact that they gave us recommendations.
Yes, that they gave us a
Second.
recommendation.
Motion,
So moved.
what's your second?
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska. Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
All right, that carries 6-0. Item D is going on for separate action at a
Thank you.
future meeting. All right, the next 4 we'll do together is, I'll read them off. Recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, variance for Blaine's Farm and Fleet, then the enacting ordinance on that variance, that's first reading. Item G is the recommendation of Planning Commission on a different variance, and then the enacting ordinance is first reading. Those are E, F, G, and H. Director Apt.
Yes, so Blaine's Farm and Fleet is proposing to do some updates to their store over on Route 30. So probably trying to modernize it to what their current brand standards are. So they're going to be redoing the kind of entry portion of the facade. Unfortunately, doing those improvements along with another area over at the far east corner exceeds our limited building materials for a facade. So we've got a max of 20% for materials such as EIFS and metal panels, and they would be at 22.3% of the total facade. So they needed a variance in order to make those updates to their facade. Additionally, they requested a variance for signage. So they currently would be redoing their main sign, but then they also want to relocate the sign that is on the east side of the building and put it right there at the corner facing Route 30, because they feel they really just don't have the visibility that they want for their tire service center. So they're looking to provide that at the very far east corner of the south facade. So that would be 2 wall signs on one facade, and our code only allows for 1. Additionally, they want to put up some semi-permanent type signs, so they're requesting a variance for that. So these would be, as you saw in your packet, these sort of like red banners that kind of advertise the different departments, so to speak, of the farm and fleet. So there would be 6 of them spread across the facade. This does kind of, they also use it as an opportunity to kind of spruce up kind of the older facades of the different buildings that they have. But it is a sort of not what we would consider a durable material as a permanent sign is defined, because it is just vinyl, but it would be on a permanent structure that would be attached to the building. So since we doesn't quite meet strict definitions, they're looking for a variance on that to be able to allow that type of sign on a permanent basis and have multiple ones of them. So there would be 6 of those semi-permanent signs. So that was the public hearings that we had. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of both of the variances for the signs as well as for the facade materials. One with the condition of fire district approval, and the other one with 2 conditions, one being that there would be no more than the 6 semi-permanent signs allowed, and that their size shall not be increased from what is being proposed. So they're locked into that and would have to come back before you if that needed to change. And then also the total signage on the front facade shall not exceed 1,185 square feet, which is what the total comes to for those 6 signs and then the 2 wall signs.
Questions?
No. I move to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission on PZC 2024-003 variance.
Second.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman,
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Brzoska?
Yes.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Item F, any opposition to consent?
Nope.
Okay. Item G,
I move to accept the recommendation of the Plan and Zoning Commission on PZC 2024-004 variance.
Second.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman,
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Brzoska?
Yes.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
that carries 6-0. Thank you all. All right, item I tonight, Resolution 2024-005, authorizing the execution of a second amendment or addendum to the Montgomery Development Fund Downtown Mill District Incentive Conditional Grant Agreement. That's a super awesome title.
I know.
For Grays Mill Phase 1, Director Apt?
Yes, so we had previously amended the conditional grant agreement to allow for the owners to, for lack of a better word, post personal property rather than a personal guarantee for the grant. So the parking lot that is across the street, we put a mortgage on that. They are now looking to obtain financing for Phase 2, and our mortgage has been flagged. So they are requesting that we release the mortgage and allow them to put personal guarantee in this time for the remainder of the term. So the amendment would allow for a personal guarantee from 2 of the owners for the remainder of the grant agreement.
And the
And then
remainder
we would
term?
release the, mortgage.
And the term of the remainder of the agreement?
I think we're looking at about 10 months. Their occupancy was approved, I believe, in October of '21.
Appreciate it.
I'll make a
Comments or
motion to
questions?
approve.
Motion?
Second.
Go ahead.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman, Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Present.
Trustee Brzoska?
Yes.
And that carries. All right, thanks, Phil. Move on to J is award of a contract to Wininger Excavating, Inc., and the amount of $2.88 million for the 2024 Water Main Improvement Project. Engineer Ott?
Thank you, President Brawley. As part of the village's ongoing Lake Michigan improvements, we have been doing, we're in our 3rd project of water main replacement. The 2024 project would include replacing water main in the Blackberry Heights subdivision, as well as on Greenfield and Shearing off Alcott Road. So we opened up bids on February 16th. We had 6 bidders. Wininger Excavating was the low bidder, and the project came in under budget. So we are recommending approval to them. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
So moved?
Well, so have we, have we used this vendor previously?
They were part of the team that worked on the excavation at the Public Works Building. They have never done any water main improvement work for the village. Our firm has worked with them in Yorkville and a couple other communities, and we have found their work to be satisfactory.
Thank you.
Quick question, Greenfield and Shearing, the roadway, is that going to be replaced?
Yeah,
after this
that
work?
is on the, all the roads in Blackberry Heights as well as on Greenfield and Shearing are part of the 2024 road program. which will be coming forward for award at the next board meeting for the board.
Perfect. Thanks, sir.
I appreciate you bringing this to us under budget.
No problem.
Oh, we did?
Yep.
Bauman, did you get Bauman second?
No, I
Bauman
didn't take
second.
Look at that.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion? Go ahead.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. Item K is the PSA with EEI for $252,000 and change for the construction engineering for that 2024 water main replacement program. Director Wolf?
Thank you, President Browley. So as Engineer Ott just outlined the replacement for water main in 2024, this PSA would be for EEI to perform the construction engineering in coordination with residents as well as public works staff and the contractor throughout the remainder of the project, or throughout the course of the project, excuse me. So if there's any questions from the board, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska.
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. Rolling into L, we have approval of an amendment to the PSA with EEI in the amount of $50,000 for the Lake Michigan water allocation permit. Director Wolf?
Thank you, President Browley. So during the process that the village was seeking our allocation permit through IDNR, there was work that was requested, additional work that was outside of the scope of the PSA that we had awarded to EEI from IDNR for that process. So basically tonight, we are looking to amend that. This was an item that was budgeted, but was going to be part of another PSA. But unfortunately, due to the timeliness of that application process, we needed to expedite that and move forward. So EEI did perform that work at risk during that time period, and tonight are seeking that $50,000. If there's any questions, either myself or Engineer Wallers could answer any questions.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. I know that that was a heck of a process with the IDNR, and I appreciate you guys jumping on that so we can get everything queued up for allocation and then rolling right into our funding. So I know this doesn't usually happen.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, go ahead.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska.
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, item M is award of a contract to Cox Landscaping in the amount of $134,000 and change for Phase 3 of the Montgomery Park improvements. Director Wolf?
Thank you, President Browley. So as the board may recall, we originally bid this project out as a one lump sum project. The board ultimately rejected that bid. We went to a phased approach for the Montgomery Park improvements. We have nearly completed Phase 1 of the project and Phase 2. Still, work is continuing to go on. So therefore, we're moving forward with Phase 3, which is the landscaping portion. We did have 3 bidders submit. In this case, Cox Landscaping submitted the low bid. Staff has worked with Cox Landscaping on the Public Works building, as well as doing our routine mowing throughout the village. And our village-wide mowing landscape contract feels that their work is acceptable to move forward in the amount of $34,980. If there's any questions, happy to answer
I
them.
would like somebody to do their best Steve
I have a question.
impersonation of the.
No, I'm getting there.
Do it.
Will
Just
this
for
be completed?
clarification purposes, the budgeted amount is all 3 phases and not just this phase? Or are we saving that much money?
So the budget amount, so I can go back and clarify, the budget amount that's in here is for FY '25, so next fiscal year. We're anticipating that we'll probably likely start some of this work before the beginning of the fiscal year, so some of that will come out of FY '24 funds, but the remainder will come out of '25. The reason that there's additional funds in there as well is that there was a compensatory storage aspect to this project that was bid out through the IRP project. So as we are getting all the numbers verified, we should be able to pull that out to get, true numbers on what that cost is, but we anticipate that it's going to be underneath that budget amount for FY '25.
Yeah, I'll get to that question. This is going to be completed in time for the fest, correct?
That is correct.
It's looking pretty good.
It is,
We're
which
getting
is why we're going with the seed and
Done.
blanket versus
100%
sod.
done.
there. It's looking good.
Punch
100%.
list, all of it.
You got it.
Okay. So moved.
Here in March, and we're sitting pretty.
So moved.
Moved and second by Brzezowska.
Okay, trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brzezowska.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer. Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
And that carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, item N is ordinance 2067, declaring personal property owned by the village as surplus and authorizing its disposal. Director Wolf.
Thank you, President Browley. So through the process of the village's vehicle and equipment replacement program, we identify and go through replacement vehicles for different departments. This particular vehicle was not scheduled to be replaced until next year, but due to staff working with our fleet department from Public Works as well as the police department, we identified kind of swapping some vehicles around. So that's why this vehicle is coming forth tonight for surplus, as it has been replaced in the current fiscal year. It was proposed to be replaced in the next fiscal year. So just moving that up a bit. Like I said, that vehicle has already been replaced and has been decommissioned and is ready to be sold on surplus. Any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
How much do you think you get for something like that?
So we just sold the vehicle today. It's very similar, almost identical. The village will see, the total value was like $6,700. There's a small fee that comes off of that for the auction company, so
right.
around $6,500.
Awesome.
So moved.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brzezowska.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman. Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, item O tonight is a resolution 2024-006, amending an agreement to renew a contract with Lakeshore Recycling Systems for the village's waste collection program. Director Wolf.
Thank you, President Browley. So the staff brought forward a proposal from LRS for an item discussion at the February 12th meeting. There was some great feedback from the board on that. LRS has amended or changed that proposal to align with, I believe, what satisfies the board for their concerns throughout that discussion process. And so we are bringing that forward tonight. Just to be clear, the existing contract is valid through July 31st. So this extension would not take place until August 1st of 2024 and would be a 7-year term moving forward. Again, all of those amendments are identified in the packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
Can you go through this again real quick? Just hit the highlights,
Sure.
please.
So we did increase the senior program, I believe, to 320 or 325?
No.
330?
There is no cap.
No
That was
cap.
part of the discussion.
So, again, if you look in the packet, there is also a comment in here. Let me find it. That basically declares that they'll continue to work through us through that process with the waiting list. So-
I saw it, it said "and more" or
Yeah.
something along those lines, yeah.
They covered it.
Okay.
Any other particular items?
Go through, so right now, if I look at this correctly, right now, we are at 1768, excuse me, that's the senior rate, 1964 monthly. And then in August, it's going to go to 2175, and then it's going to go up each year.
4.7%.
4.7%. Had we not done this, it would have jumped to $26 across the board for everybody. As part of this, to go from the 1964 to the 2175, we're going back to a sticker program for people who are bagging their materials. We have, I believe, 4 weeks?
Correct.
That we can use?
Correct.
That are, where we can put out whatever we want, as far as lawn waste and those sorts of things that would go in bags that are free.
Correct.
So if we decide to do 1 week in the spring and 3 weeks in the fall because of the leaf takes longer to fall, we can do that?
We can.
But in that situation, I think the residents want to know long enough in advance. If we have a month notice in fall saying, hey, it's going to be a warm fall, leaves are staying on the trees later, these are our weeks, or do we have to let LRS know prior to, well, I guess we have to let our residents know, otherwise they need stickers.
Yeah, there's going to be a process for sure of notification to both the residents and LRS to give, obviously, enough heads up. Again, it's something that we're challenged with each and every year, even on our own collection program. We have a limited time frame in order to, go out and collect leaves that are put out for bulk collection, and it's all weather dependent. One of the nice things, as I stated, is that this existing contract goes through till July 31st, so we won't be plagued with this kind of first go-through in the spring. We'll have it in the fall, so it should give us a better idea to kind of plan for that and be able to come up with a timeframe for notification to both the contractor and to residents. So we were anticipating, and again, up for discussion, 2 weeks in the fall and 2 weeks in the spring consecutive. That was a request of the contractor to try to make those collection weeks consecutive, just from a logistics standpoint for them, so their drivers know for 2 weeks straight, they're not going to be, looking for the stickers. But again, we're definitely going to work through that process and figure out what works best. On average, our typical bulk for leaf collection is right after, oh my gosh, what is it? Labor Day? Veterans Day? One of those. So we'll typically time it out right around that time period. It'll be likely our 2-week unlimited collection period.
This is a 7-year contract extension, and so had we gone, so obviously, okay, 7-year contract extension, had we gone out to bid, our pricing, I think, would have come back higher. I think by giving this contract extension, we're actually saving the residents money.
That's our consensus based upon the research that we've done. There are no other comparable communities that have 7-year contracts. It's very much a thing of the past. Contractors are trying to reduce that risk and liability to shorter-term contracts. So as staff evaluating our long-term contracts that we have versus what we have in shorter-term contracts, we feel that it's more advantageous for the village in this instance to have this 7-year contract with LRS.
Cool.
What's the grace period going to be August 1st as it pertains to yard waste?
I don't believe that there will.
How is that going to be messaged out to residents that here we are in the middle of the summer, now your yard waste is going to sit out there for a week because you didn't know now that you require a sticker?
Yeah, so part of the, obviously, if the board chooses to award this contract extension tonight, that'll be one of our first projects to start moving forward is the education piece to make residents aware of this change so that when that contract changeover happens, that people are aware. Like any change, we're going to experience some issues and some feedback comments from residents, but we're going to try and do our best on the front end to make sure we get that information out.
The senior rate starts at what age?
I believe
65.
Okay.
With the purchase of the stickers, I know you could get them at the grocery stores. Will we have them here too at Village Hall?
So again, after tonight's approval, we'll start working with LRS to identify vendors throughout the village or locally that will sell them. Not all vendors will, but our anticipation would be that Village Hall will be selling stickers as well as likely at the police department, since they take payment there as well already. They'll be set up for that, in addition to some other local vendors that LRS will be trying to source.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve?
Second.
And I got a question still.
Oh,
sorry. No, it's
So on the yard waste, LRS, they start yard waste April 1st?
Correct.
Through the end of October?
Correct.
Okay, and then Public Works, your bulk service where you pick up branches is what months?
April
typically?
and October.
April and October. Okay, so that pretty much falls in line. So I know at the last meeting, I had mentioned that one of the reasons that we eliminated, or several reasons we eliminated doing the bulk brush pickup every month was because LRS was basically doing it for free. It was part of the pricing. And we didn't have the manpower or the equipment. So it seems like you're in good shape this year, but next year, I would like us to look at that. Obviously, you're not going to pick up brush in August, right, because of the weather. Maybe through the forestry division, come up with some additional months where we can offer that service so that, because now, I mean, even with large branches, you have to cut them down to a certain size for LRS, but then if people are going to have to start to bundle those and put a 250 sticker on them, I think we should, provide that service more often to the residents that have larger trees.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we can evaluate throughout the process and see how that changes things for those that were utilizing LRS and the free yard waste. Another thing just to throw out too, we do, I think, a very good job, unbiased of course, of post events when we have high wind events or storm damage. We typically get information out as well to residents and go out and do storm pickup. We just don't typically see the volume throughout the summer months for those, but we'll definitely continue to evaluate that. And if we feel that additional collections are needed throughout the year, we can definitely implement those.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions? I mean, stating the obvious, but I think you're going to get more village leaf collection, I think, in the fall. I never put mine in a bag anyway, but I assume that people do. And the second is that people honestly probably should be mulching their grass a little bit more than we do, if you mow your grass. It's good for the world if you do, so.
Not for the government to say.
True. There's been a motion and a second.
Okay, trustee Marisak,
Yes.
trustee Brzoska.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
No.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Okay, and that carries 5-1. Thank you. All right, rolling into item P this evening is the second escrow intergovernmental agreement in the amount of $6.6 million between the Village of Montgomery, the Village of Oswego, and the United City of Yorkville, and the DuPage Water Commission. Go ahead.
Thank you. We previously brought to you a similar IGA for the Phase 1 engineering for Lake Michigan project. This is to allow for Phase 2 engineering for that project. We would have the first payment to them, we'd do it in tranches again like we did last time, so we'd do it, I believe, in March, September, and January. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, go ahead.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling. Yes. Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brzoska.
Yes.
All right, that carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, moving into items for discussion. Tonight, we have the fiscal year 2025 budget discussion on other funds.
The speedy portion of the budget conversation.
Have you tucked any trucks in other funds?
Thanks.
Thank you. Computer pool. I knew we could not get out of this meeting without a PowerPoint.
All right, we're good now. Okay,
How's it going?
I think we're ready.
Welcome.
All right, so hello once again. I'm Jennifer Mlewski, the Finance Director for the Village of Montgomery, and tonight we continue with our conversation about the fiscal year 25 recommended budget. So for tonight's conversation, we tackle our special revenue funds as well as our capital funds, and then we'll complete our conversation on March 25th with the enterprise funds. We'll also have the public hearing and first reading of the budget that day. and then we'll have second reading scheduled for April 8th. So, one thing that we didn't share last time is the total recommended budget. So as you can see here, we have total revenues of the budget at $61.8 million on the revenue side and expenditures at that $59.5 million. You can see that general fund makes up about 25% of the total budget, but tonight we're going to be focusing on those special revenues and capital funds. So collectively, that's about 27% of the budget. And once again, we align the budget with our strategic plan. So as I go through, you're going to continue to hear me weave through these initiatives of quality of life, civic engagement, economic development, and professional governance. So we're going to start with going through some of the nuts and bolts first, and then we'll hit some of the highlights. So with special revenues, we see the 25 recommendation of $12.5 million. So that does include a debt issuance of approximately $8 million for TIF 2. So once we extract that out, you'll see our top revenue sources here with property taxes at about $3.3 million, intergovernmental revenues at 1.2, and then we round out with interest at that 100,000 value. So, yes.
Jennifer, I'm sorry, could you back up? What did you just say about TIF? I was reading something and then I heard TIF.
No problem. So the $12.5 million that you see there in revenues, $8 million of that is attributed to TIF, debt issuance. So that's going to help fund some of those projects that we'll get into a little later. But I just wanted to, that's why kind of those numbers don't match up if you look at it. So I wanted to make sure that I explained why we have 12.5, but then I only have about $4 million up there for you. All right, so moving on to the expenditures. So we'll see expenditures at approximately $6.2 million for our special revenue funds, which, by the way, we have 21 special revenue funds, and a special revenue fund helps us account for revenues that is restricted for restricted activity. So that includes our motor fuel tax, that includes our Montgomery Development Fund, a number of SSAs, and our TIF districts. So these are some of the items that we're going to kind of go into, and I'm going to give you some highlights on where that money is going. So starting off with our motor fuel tax. So this is a non-MFT year for our road program. So every other year, we use those funds to improve our road program. So on those off years, we kind of build up those reserves so that we have kind of that bigger pot for those even years to use on those road programs. So this year, you'll see that we only have $104,000 budgeted, and that's attributed really to the purchase of road salt. So we have about 1,200 ton of road salt budgeted for this fiscal year.
And is that the 104?
Yep.
The 100, okay. Is that light for us? For road salt?
It is not. It's about average, I think, budget-wise. Obviously, we've seen some years where we've purchased more, but I think our supply is steady right now. So if we even take the full 1,200 ton, right?
Okay, sorry.
All right. And then next, we're going to move on to the Montgomery Development Fund. So we have some highlights here. Our Montgomery Development Fund is used namely to spur some economic development. It's also the resource for small businesses if they want to apply for a forgivable loan or low-interest loan. We have funds available for that as well. So items that we've included with the fiscal year 25's budget is that downtown marketing plan. So obviously, we've had a lengthy conversation earlier tonight discussing plans for that downtown area in the Mill District. So this allows us some flexibility should an opportunity arise to capitalize on that. We also are going to see the continuation of our Gateway Sign program. So this is a 5-year program. We are entering into year 2 in fiscal year 25. Throughout the village this year, residents would notice those new monuments installed in about 20 different areas, replacing the old signs. So fiscal year 25 will include our first monument, TBD on the location right now. I know we're kind of thinking of certain aspects of where that monument will go, but then it'll continue on for a few more years with additional monument installations for that Montgomery Development Fund, so that you can see that we have $569,000 budgeted. The largest projects that we're going to see are in our TIF 2 area. Again, this is where we would be issuing debt to move some of these projects forward. So we'll have the Alcott Road widening, the Nell Road extension, overflow improvements, as well as the water main replacement on Alcott. So one highlight I do want to really commend the board on, though, is when the TIF district was approved, we agreed to pass on background EAV to other agencies that were affected, other taxing agencies. This last year, those agencies saw an increase of their background increment of 59%. So that's a testament to we're doing it correctly. The investments in this area are already being realized by those other agencies. So it's a success story for a TIF district. So as we move on to our capital funds, so obviously capital funds are where we designate those resources to maintain village assets, expand infrastructure, and develop ourselves into the future. So we'll see that we have $7.9 million in total recommended budget for our capital funds. Our number one revenue source are intergovernmentals, which includes our non-home rule sales tax. We'll also see charges for service at $1.8 million, and then round out with other taxes, which is namely made up of utility tax payments that we designate for capital purchases. So moving on to those expenses. Largest piece of that expense is contractual services. You'll see that $7.2 million, and I will tell you in a second where that money is going. But we come in at just under $10 million on our capital investment for the community. Now, you will note that there is a deficit in that spending. So we have drawn, we have in prior years built up those funds. This is an intentional spend down so that we can have a very robust infrastructure improvement program as we move into first talking about our capital improvement fund. So we've already discussed Montgomery Park enhancements at length tonight, so we'll continue to see that come to a close this year and right in time for Montgomery Fest. So that'll be exciting. We'll also see some investments in the police facility as well. So one of the items in our strategic plan was to develop a long-term facility maintenance program. So staff has been well on our way to developing that program right now. So we're commencing this with the investment in the police facility. So they're going to get new flooring and they're going to see some replacement of mechanical units. So that is, it's not exciting, but it's much needed. So. But this is more the exciting part, the Infrastructure Improvement Fund. So you'll see recommended budget of $7.4 million. Huge, huge number going on. And I know about these projects enough to be dangerous, so I'm going to walk through it to the best of my abilities, but we have engineer Ott and Wallers here that can really get into the nitty-gritty on the details. So for my intent and purposes, we're going to see a big investment in the pedestrian bridge of Route 30. So that's going to connect that Lakewood Creek subdivision, give us some kind of pedestrian mobility and access to Stewart Sports Complex. So that is a very large project that will take several years to complete, and the village also has a grant that will help offset those costs. The other item we see this year is a Dixon Road realignment at Galena. So that is going to really be an improvement for that intersection, so residents can stay tuned for that. The largest item, though, that we're going to see for our residents is the investment in the Blackberry Heights subdivision. So as many of you may be aware, several areas of this are incorporated and unincorporated. So this is really a testament to staff's ability to coordinate with other with other agencies including Fox Metro and Aurora Township. So with our collaboration and the cross-referencing of our infrastructure plans with one another, residents in Blackberry Heights are going to see not only new roads, but new water main and sanitary sewer in this area. So it is going to be a very rough summer for them, and we appreciate their patience, but at the end of this project, as we collaborate with these other agencies and try to minimize the effect on their lives as much as possible, once we're done, we won't be back in this area for 20 years. So it really is going to be a great project. So we're excited about it, especially with the ability to work with these other agencies. So. But in addition to that, we're also continuing on with our road replacement program. So here we have the 19 streets that will be affected this year. And if residents are interested, the information is on our website as well, so that they can figure out if their lives will be disrupted this summer. So we have a map there as well. And then finally, we have the Vehicle Equipment Replacement Fund. So we did reevaluate, now that the market has stabilized some, we did reevaluate the equipment values and vehicle charges. So we've realigned our contributions to the VERF fund to ensure that we have that money there for future years when these vehicles are due for replacement. And you'll see that this year we are starting a new body worn and squad camera system. These are two items that we are combining, because that's kind of where technology is leading us at this point in time. So we see a huge investment this year into that program. All squads will be re-outfitted with new cameras that talk to the body-worn cameras, and then everything will be cloud-based. And then we have our standard police vehicle replacement. So we have 5 squads scheduled for replacement according to our schedule. We have verified with the fleet division, and they have agreed that we have those squads to retire, and if we can secure those 5 squads, then we will move forward with that. So, as for tonight's presentation, that's all I have. But residents can always seek more information on the village's website. We also have a hard copy of the village budget, the recommended 25 budget, available at Village Hall to review, should they have the desire. And that's all I have for tonight, so I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The realignment of Dixon and Galena, will that be a 4-way stop all the way around?
No, it'll be a traffic signal.
Oh, it is traffic signal?
At Dixon will now line up with Cannonball.
Uh-huh.
We'll go through, the village had some right-of-way and also purchased some right-of-way to get that. And yeah, it'll be a 4-way stop, and then it'll be a little bit of an S intersection, if you will, where it ties into Dixon until we ultimately, hopefully at some point, extend all the way to where Gordon Road currently dead ends as in the future
Got it.
potentially.
I was thinking that.
I
Eventually,
am
Gordon.
absolutely confused
So
now.
you know where Gordon dead ends?
Yeah,
It's a no-load
yep.
arterial, or what do we call it? That someday will extend. We're not doing that now. Right now, they're doing the intersection improvements at Dixon.
And it'll
And-
go up through that field and tie into current Dixon.
Right now, Dixon, Cannonball, and Galena are going to be a cross intersection, signalized cross intersection. That's going to occur this next fiscal year, which starts in April. Oh, is it already, when's it start?
Surveying a
Was
land
it
clearing.
March?
Yeah.
Oh, so the project started. The fiscal year is April
May
1st,
1st.
correct? May
May
1st,
1st.
okay.
This is a project that the Kendall County Department of Transportation is heading up and doing, and the village is paying for basically that new extension of the road through the open grass. That's the portion of the village is on.
Let me ask this. Remember all those issues we had at 30 and Orchard with the milling and deconstruction? Are they going to be on this project?
They are on this project.
They are not.
Yes, they are.
Why are they on this project?
It's not our project.
They were a little bit,
Are we funding some of this project?
yes, we're contributing
How many
funds.
issues did we have with deconstruction at 30 and Orchard.
So we didn't have any issues with them. That was a county project through IDOT. We have done projects with deconstruction, such as the LAFO project that we did for Orchard Road, and we had, really minimal to no issues. So, the 30 and Orchard project was very complex. I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but that was a very difficult project. Nevertheless, yes, the workmanship was not where it should be. However, different projects will have different foremen, crews, so on and so forth. So I'm sure that's something that Kendall County will be evaluating as they're out there doing construction evaluation.
How complex is it to lay a flat, smooth surface?
That I can't attest to. I'm not on a paving
Apparently
crew.
harder than it is to do a bumpy one. Thanks, Mark.
So Gordon would. So, yeah, so we could provide you guys with some, I think we have a sketch of how that would
Yeah,
look.
Google it.
We can provide that to the board if you'd like, but it would extend where Gordon dead ends at the very south portion. It'll extend through that open field, kind of S curve a little bit around towards, or curve, I should say, around to the west, and then connect at that point where Dixon is now going to realign. So again, we can provide you with that, give you a little better
But
context.
that portion of it is not currently funded. The Gordon
Correct.
stuff is not currently funded.
Correct.
So the road dead ends now and will continue until we get funding. And property, because that goes through property we don't have rights
Correct.
to. Yeah.
So is that based on development?
Yes.
In that area? Thank you. Based on proposed development
Yes.
for Gordon Road? Okay.
Thank you, Director Maluski. Nice job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any additional questions for staff on that? Okay. Hearing none, move on to the last item for discussion this evening is the mailbox policy. I asked Jeff to add this to the meeting. I've talked to several residents this year that have raised exceptions to the policy that we currently have. And I apologize that it's not in front of you this evening. But in short, staff can correct me if I'm wrong. If your mailbox is damaged in any way during a plow incident, we will reimburse you a maximum of $75. And so the two issues that I have with that, and I would like to request, a little bit of discussion if the board is agreeable, amend the policy. Staff has been steadfast in enforcing in the policy. There is no leeway in the policy. So that $75, that's all they have, and whether or not a plow strikes your mailbox, even if it,
says whether it's damaged, says whether it's damaged by our equipment or by snow hitting the mailbox. You get the $75.
right. So what my concerns are, and I'd like to see us change, is the hard and fast $75. I think the cost to have this replaced, and I guess I'm assuming for a second that your mailbox is installed correctly, it's not overhanging the sidewalk, you've done everything right, and snow throw, breaking your mailbox is one thing, but if we've had instances, and we have, where the actual plow or the vehicle struck your mailbox, that's the second portion of this, I would like to see it amended that we are going to reimburse you for the cost to fix that, regardless of what your mailbox is.
I agree with
Assuming
that. I
that
mean, if our vehicle hits your mailbox, they
Yeah.
have most likely left the road. I mean, to me, that's no different than a plow hitting a car or something
Yeah.
like that. Then yes, I think we should make the resident whole if the plow hits the mailbox.
And I want to make that as determined by the village solely. So our staff's going to have to investigate, like they do now, and determine that your mailbox was not overhanging the sidewalk. So I think that probably means some good pre-plowing insurance, driving through the village. It'd be subject to their approval only.
And and Director Wolf, please, you can address this. I thought there was a sort of a pre-checklist where somebody goes through and looks at all the mailboxes beforehand, and the residents are then notified that, hey, your mailbox is not in the best of shape.
Correct. We make a best effort. So this year, for example, we weren't able to evaluate the east side of town. We focused on the west side in our pre-snow route evaluation. On top of looking for mailboxes that are not in compliancy, we're also looking for low tree branches that may damage the vehicles. We're looking at any structures within the roadway, such as manholes that are elevated and raised, are going to cause damage to either the surface or the vehicle. So there are a lot of different things that our drivers are looking for while they're doing those evaluations, but we definitely do make a best effort. I think we handed out about 56 notifications this year, specifically for mailboxes that were not in compliancy or in a position or in a manner that they're compromised and they're likely not going to take much to break off. And so again, our effort on that is to try to forewarn residents and make sure that they do their due diligence while the weather is still decent to go out and replace that mailbox, because regardless of what type of winter we have, it's likely that it's not going to make it, or again, it's not compliant with the standard. And so in that instance, if the truck hits that mailbox or the plow hits that mailbox, technically it's not per the postal code standard, so that becomes kind of a questionable issue there. But it's something that we do our best to try. Our effort is to avoid any inconvenience to the resident, because any inconvenience to the resident cause for staff time and truck rolls for us, because our staff goes out, evaluates it, superintendent then looks at it, so on and so forth. So yes, we make an effort to reduce that as much as possible.
What is the amount that you guys want to go up to?
I didn't propose an amount.
Can I ask?
I would like to see, real quick, I would actually propose that it's a value set annually when we update our fee ordinance or something, because I think I was on the board when we approved this hard, fast $75 amount.
Well, didn't we roll it back a couple of years ago? I thought we were at 150.
It was at 50, yeah.
It was at 150, and for some reason,
No.
we went back to 75?
No, it was at 50.
Oh, we
It was
went
at
up.
50.
Yeah,
We went up to
this is
75.
the highest it's ever been.
Oh, okay.
So
And
years
so-
ago, it was, if we broke it, we fixed it. That was it. There was no
Yeah.
reimbursement. So if Public Works damaged somebody's mailbox, they would go out, they would evaluate it, they would do what was required to fix it. If that was just a new wooden base plate, use the existing mailbox, put it back together, a couple of screws, replace the post. I mean, that was a policy. And at some point in time, the policy was changed to, of course, again, this is when we didn't have a lot of staff, it was consuming time, was we will reimburse residents a set dollar amount for them to make their repairs.
I think that was in the I think I'm getting the 150. When we had this conversation at length the last time, we were thinking the replacement cost was 150 at that time. So that tells how long ago that was, when we're hearing that it's much higher now than even the 150.
I've
Yeah.
replaced my mailbox twice.
And how
New
much?
post, in concrete, mailbox. I Googled the material at Home Depot today. It's $77, including taxes, for a 6-foot post, for 2 bags of concrete, for a mailbox.
And you were able to do it yourself?
I'm able to do it
Okay,
myself.
well, not everybody's in
Now,
that
I
position.
understand that.
Yeah.
And so here's where I'm going with this. I'm willing to go up to, I'll go up to $200, right? There's got to be some sort of, if we go through this process, it needs to now be reinstalled as per U.S. Postal Service guidelines. The U.S. Postal Service guidelines, I'm reading from their website, position your mailbox 41 to 45 inches from the road surface to the bottom of the mailbox or point of mail entry. Place your mailbox 6 to 8 inches back from the curb. If there are mailboxes that are hanging over the curb, we are responsible, as part of our ordinance, we remove snow from curb to curb.
Right?
Yeah,
If that mailbox is hanging out over that curb, it's going to get hit.
yes.
And it is not installed as per U.S. Postal Service regulations.
And that's our ordinance on the books now for mailboxes. So
Yeah,
they
it has to be US
installed
yes.
by
And if that's
US.
the case, then and presumably we've told the resident before, we're not reimbursing you if it was not installed properly.
Well, then we get into this annual debate of, was it snow or was it the plow?
True. And staff will have to determine that. But if it's a clear cut, and there's evidence that a plow blade
Oh, sure.
nailed it.
Then absolutely, yes.
Because I'm thinking if it was my mailbox, and I don't fault any of our drivers whose first and, priority is clean and safe streets for all at that point. However, after the fact,
It
we got to
happens.
do what's right.
So I have a question for Director Wolf. Roughly how many, and I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but roughly how many mailboxes do we actually strike and damage, where we do property damage?
To-
Are you,
to
wait,
s-
are
to
you talking about with the truck or with the snow?
Property damage, meaning we hit it.
So physically
Not snow,
strike.
we
Physically
hit it with
hit it
our
with the
truck.
truck.
Okay, hit it, okay.
You know what, there's so
And
many,
I
there
don't
are
mean
so
to put
many
you on the spot, but
variables.
is it,
Less
is
than
it
5.
80? Or,
Less than 5.
okay, so it's not a huge number.
You know, there's so many different instances that can go into that. If we have an ice event, I mean, you know, that's out the window, because you could be having a lot of issues like that with trucks sliding off the roadway. But we haven't had a lot of ice events in the past. So yeah, I would say, you know, generally less, 5 to 10 at the most.
Okay, that was, I just wanted to get an idea of what Pandora's box we're opening. If it's 300, that's a different conversation than we're having now. So,
But I think